You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we're talking about the post-apocalyptic horror film Birdbox, directed by Susanne Bier and released on Netflix December 21st, 2018.
It was fun to revisit this one.
Yeah, I haven't seen it since it kind of first came out and was a big buzz back then in 2018, into that year. Which actually, like, fun little story about that. I bought the book like 3 years before it came out. So like 2015, ish kind of area, I think, off of a recommendation from somebody. And then it just sat on the shelf. Like, it was one that I bought it as a recommendation, but then never read it. It was just kind of like in my to read pile at some point. Mm-hmm. And then 2018, when this movie came out and there was the memes everywhere and it was such a big deal.
Yeah.
Everybody's watching it. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I have this book. Like, I have the book this is based on. I remember buying it because somebody said it was a good book. And I was like, is this the same? And so I'm looking at it. It was like, yeah, Josh Malerman. Okay. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to read it first. Then I'm going to go on and watch it. And so I read through the book. It's a pretty quick read. It's not that long. And then, like, I remember the same day, like the night I finished reading it and then immediately started the movie on Netflix, which maybe not the best idea because it kind of taints like that first viewing of it. Because then the first time I watched this movie, all I'm doing is like noticing all, any and all differences and changes and character things and all this stuff. So of course it's kind of, bring it down a little bit because I'm like, well, they took out that part and that person's different and they didn't do this, but then why are they doing this? And then,
yeah.
So it's cool now, this many years later, to go back and rewatch this kind of as a fresh start of like, I've seen it before, but I'm like, I don't have the book directly right in my brain as I'm watching it this time. So I'm kind of revisiting it as just the movie. And I think I enjoyed it even more this time.
Yeah.
With that lens.
I think you're right. The movie that we're recording next week, I will have just finished the book before I rewatch it. And I'm wondering how that's going to affect my enjoyment of the movie. Because I tend to read the books after, unless it's a movie that comes out like way after the books came out and I've already read the books, like Harry Potter or The Hunger Games. So I want to read Birdbox because I think, based on what I read when I did research for our feature at the end of the episode, there are some differences, and I'll go over those, but I really want to connect with the characters through the book. Yeah,
the book was, it's been, 4 years or whatever since I read it back, 2018. But yeah, from what I remember from it, it was said it's not that long ago. It's not like a super short story either, but I mean, I think I blasted through it in like a day and a half. Like, I was very invested in it. So,
and you like real books, like you want. We've already established you like the paper.
Yes,
you want to read the book. I have a friend that's very similar to that. She likes to have the book in her hand. Mm-hmm. She wants to read it that way. She doesn't want to do the audiobook. I used to listen to a lot of books on CD or on Audible on my commute, but I haven't been commuting for like 2 years. So I've only been doing reading through book club. So I really haven't done as much reading as I would like. So I need to get on that. I have bought a couple of new books on Audible to listen to once book club ends. So I'm really excited to decide which one it's going to be because I'm not sure. Haven't decided.
I have so many books that I need to read. It's like a stack almost as tall as I am. If I was to stack them up that way, I feel like that I'm like, yep, I've still got to get through all of these, but I used to read a lot more. And then, I just get so like I have so many podcasts that I'm always trying to like listen to, or so many other like, or TV shows and stuff I'm trying to stay on top of for podcasts and for everything. So I'm like, I don't have time to read anymore, but
it's a full-time job when your friends are podcasters to keep up with the show and the podcast, or the movie and the podcast. It's hard. It takes a lot of time. I know I've been honest on our podcast when I've said that sometimes I can only keep up with Strange Indeed because you guys are covering shows that I like. So I'll do my best to keep up with Strange Indeed and Walking Dead cast. And I try to listen to some others. I just don't always have time.
Right. There's only so much time. And yeah, with so many podcasts out there, because like, I mean, gonna go ahead and give a shout out to all of our like, you know, Podcastica and Pirate Core stuff. There's a lot of great shows out there, and I listen to as many of them as I can. But then also outside of our network and our friends, like I have a lot of other just like comedy podcasts and wrestling podcasts and other stuff that I try to listen to also. And so to stay on top of everything, it is a lot.
It really is. I listen to a lot of social media podcasts, and our friend Ben was just on an Instagram Live last week to talk about podcasting. And I did tune into that one because I was interested. The woman that hosted it is a friend of his, and she's into like the social media and doing social media posts for companies that don't have time to like curate their own content. Mm-hmm. It was really cool to listen to that because I'm fascinated with it. The problem is, like you, I do have those other podcasts I want to listen to. And it's like, how do I choose? There's not enough time in the day to choose what to listen to. It's like, okay, I just finished this, so now I can catch up on this one. Ugh. And then I get sucked into a YouTube rabbit hole and I can't get out.
Yeah, there's also that too.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the stuff that pops up, and then you just, 2 hours later, you're like, what am I doing? I'm still here. I was supposed to be done with this. So I think we should start off our podcast with production notes.
All right.
So this movie was filmed in California. All the wilderness scenes were shot on the Smith River in Northern California.
I'm glad you grabbed that little bit of info because I was wondering what that river was, because those are some pretty awesome above like shots.
Yeah, wasn't it cool? It was based on the 2014 novel of the same name by Josh Malerman. As of an Insider article in April 2022, Birdbox is the third most watched film on Netflix ever, behind Don't Look Up and Red Notice. The theater had a limited theatrical run on December 14th before being released a week later on Netflix. The budget was $19.8 million. Within the first 4 weeks, it had been watched in 89 million households. A November 2019 Barclays study reported that had Birdbox been released in the theater, it would have grossed approximately 98 million worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah. It's 124 minutes. Pake, would you bring us the synopsis?
Right. An ominous, unseen presence drives most of society to suicide, and eventually a mother and her 2 children make a desperate bid to reach safety.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's kind of cool. And straight to the point.
Yes.
Doesn't give too much away.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Which I like to do.
Exactly. You don't want anything to be spoiled.
Right.
Right?
You know, we don't want to spoil the movie for you as we're about to talk about every little detail for the next hour to hour and a half or whatever.
Well, you know that some of our friends that listen to the podcast will listen to it even if they haven't watched the movie because it helps them decide if they want to. I know that's completely different than what you and I, how we go about movies.
It's a little strange, but you know what? Whatever works for them.
Yep, exactly. That's how I feel as well.
Yeah, I'm glad we can turn you on to some new movies regardless for you, if that's how that works. You know?
Absolutely. I've never done that. Like, I've never listened to a podcast to decide if I'm going to see a movie. What I've done is I know I'm not going to see the movie, but my friends are podcasting on this, so I'm going to listen to it, but I'm never seeing the movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that I've done. But it's never been, oh, I need to listen ahead of time. No.
Right. Because then after I've heard that, then I'm like, well, I feel like I've seen it at this point, right?
Yeah. It's like Cliff Notes, right? Do you know what those are?
Yes.
Cliff Notes? Okay.
I'm not 12. I've been around a little while. Do they still use that or everything? There's probably like a cliffnotes.com that kids are using.
I'm sure.
That's probably what it is. Yeah, they've probably moved into the digital age.
Do you think so?
Yeah. Because I remember go to like a bookstore or a library, and there's like the little section, like an end cap that has all the cliff notes of like literature that most schools and classes and stuff are reading. You can find a lot of Shakespeare classics and stuff. The Cliff Notes one, there's like a whole section for them.
Yeah.
I bet you it is. Cliffnotes.com, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I had to check because, I had to do it.
It would make sense. They've got to move to online because there's no kids nowadays. Like, I don't say no. There's probably some out there that are sticking to it, but for the most part, you're not getting a lot of kids going to libraries and bookstores looking for study help and things like that. And
no. No, I don't think so either.
Well, we like tangents today. That's okay.
It's okay, right? I feel like today is just one of those days.
I feel like whether we're talking about the movie or not, we're bouncing all over the place. Because, as we're about to get into this movie, the movie itself is told in a very disjointed, like, back and forth way.
I didn't mind it.
No, not at all. I think it's cool to kind of go back and forth. But then just with us trying to kind of break it down, because I don't want to recap the movie. I want to say that off the top. We sometimes get stuck in that. In the past has done that. And like those episodes, I'm like, I'd rather would have just given more opinion. I don't want to just recap the movie for you guys.
Exactly.
So I'm going to try my best not to do that. But it is kind of hard because it's like the way that they tell the story and then like the way we like to break down by characters. I'm like, Mallory's pretty much the main focus.
Yes.
But there is a lot of other character things. I feel like, well, to really talk about that separately, if we didn't, then I would just be like, so Mallory did this, and then one thing led to another, and then they were at this point. You're like, whoa, what happened? Where did we get to there? So,
exactly.
We're going to jump around a lot. Like I said,
we will.
It's another House of Pain episode.
House of Pain. Oh, goodness. I could say something, but I am not going to.
I'm in a House of Pain.
You are.
Well, we'll push through.
I liked how they interwove, like, the two pieces, and we went back and forth between the two. I really liked that about the movie. My only issue, and it's a non-issue, is that every time Machine Gun Kelly, who I believe played Felix, was on the screen, all I could think of is when you showed me his battle with Eminem. Yeah. Every time I saw him, that's all I could think is, oh my God, that rap battle that wasn't a battle at all. No. I had a lot of thoughts like that throughout this movie, like just different offshoots of things, just because something would happen or there would be a cameo and I would just be like, oh my God. And I would go off on a tangent. So I will try. While we try to stay on course and focus on our main character and doing this movie justice, I will personally try not to go on any offshoot tangents.
Oh, well, I'm on kind of the opposite. I'm like, I think tangents are okay if we're talking about other characters and bouncing out because, like I said, I don't want to like recap the movie beat by beat either.
No,
so it's good to just kind of jump around and have fun with it.
Yeah, it's not our thing. Like, we're not recappers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely not.
Yes. So, going into it, yes, Mallory is our main character, played by Sandra Bullock, who I remember after reading the book being like, that's an interesting choice. Like, that's not who I picture at all after reading. But I was like, but you know what? That's all right. And I think she did a great job with it. I think it was definitely a great role for her. She did it very well. Her, connection to the kids, even though a lot of that relationship, that connection is kind of a non-relationship on purpose. She's strategically not being connected to them in that much in order to keep them alive. And so, I mean, that's kind of like a thing when she has that fight with Tom. As I told you, we're going to jump around because I'm already getting there. But, where that whole thing was like, you just named them boy and girl. Like, do you see they don't have a mother. They have somebody who's just trying to keep them alive. And she's purposely done that. But I think even within that realm, and then as you see her connection to them kind of grow throughout the movie, she does a really, really good job with that.
She did. I feel like she didn't name them because Tom was right. I feel like it was a form of detachment. She wanted to focus on keeping them alive. But I feel like not knowing if she could or not, or if something was going to happen to them. I don't know that she wanted to have that connection with them.
Yeah.
Because everyone around her just kept dying. So, I mean, even when, and like we said, we're going to jump around, even when both of the kids came into the world, they were this close to not being around. Like, it was crazy. So, I feel like she wanted it to be a sort of detachment. They each had their own little stuffed animal thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was what, that was supposed to comfort them. That was supposed to be the comfort item for them. Because she was not as connected as you could see Tom was, and he wasn't related to them.
Yeah.
But I feel like he was a great father to them and tried really hard to connect with them and be a family.
Yeah, because when the movie opens, is we're getting to the place where they're heading to the boat to get on the river and go on this plan. And I mean, she is like very strict rules, no nonsense. This is what we're going to do. You're going to do it exactly this way. Even threatening them. It's like, if you don't do it, I will hurt you. And it's like, oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's so scary. If I was a child, I'd be terrified.
Yeah. Which is what, later on when she's trying to find them after they have gone through the rapids, and she does find boy first. And she's like, where's girl? And it's like, she's scared of you. Like, she doesn't want to come to you. So she has to change her tactic, and she really has to then at that point say the nicer things and really try to, open up. And yeah, because we see, I mean, she is very like authoritarian at the top. And I mean, what they're about to do requires it. It requires that kind of intensity. She wants to make sure that they are in line and that everything goes exactly as it needs to be done, because it is life or death.
Because taking a child down those rapids is not something that's recommended. Like, even Rick, who is the leader at the sanctuary, tells her, well, it's a good thing you don't have kids because it's really hard to get here. And, others have tried and it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
So I feel like she was no nonsense, like you said.
Yeah. And then, they give us little hints of things. They leave the house, they have the blindfolds on. And this is, again, I'd read the book before, so knowing what's going on. But I think somebody who's just jumping in blind to this movie without knowing what's going on, it is interesting. You find, okay, so the blindfolds are of, utmost importance for sure. Can't look at what's going on. She takes the birds out of the cage and puts them in the box. Voila. Birdbox.
It wasn't said out loud. I don't think it was going to be. That's the closest thing to a mic drop that we're going to get.
Right. Yeah. And then, of course, as you said, with Rick, his voice over the radio at the beginning of the movie as well, with that, the river is the safest way to get to this compound that we have that's safe, but it's not going to be so doable with kids. Do you have kids? Because it's not, it's not feasible that way. But Mallory's taking the chance anyway, and we see Tom end up wanting her to do.
She didn't want Rick to have very much information on them either, because she had grown very skeptical and I guess leery of people saying who they were and not really being who they said they were.
Well, because there's all these like little factions of, I was calling them like the unblindfolded, which sounds a little more ominous, but technically their credit is marauders. And these marauders, I mean, they're out there. There's something that has gone wrong in their brain. There's like a mental, instability that when they see the creatures, instead of killing themselves, they kind of become a like servant of these creatures, where then it becomes their utmost goal and mission to find the people who are still in hiding and force them to remove their blindfolds and see these creatures. It's kind of they're the way that these creatures can infiltrate people that are hiding inside places.
They're the ministers of the flock. Because that's what I was calling them. They're of the flock. And some of them, as we learn partway through, are from a mental institution. So I think it's some sort of they were dealing with some sort of mental illness or mental instability, like you said, that caused this switch to flip. And it didn't affect them like it did everyone else.
Yeah, and so of course, Mallory's not going to want too much information about them getting out, because what if this is a trap? What if this is those people who have somehow found a way to reach them on the radio, and they're going to pinpoint their location based off of what they say?
Yeah, but I think Rick gave them more information than I think Mallory was expecting. He's like, you need to take the river. He told them exactly how to get there. Yeah. So I feel like she loosened up just a little bit, because when Tom is first talking to Rick, she's just kind of like, don't say anything. Don't give anything away. Don't tell them anything, because she's worried, and she has every reason to be worried.
Oh, yeah. Because
everything that happened up to that point, I'd be worried. A lot of shit went down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, it does. It helps her be a little more comfortable with all of the information she gives. Like, you're going to have to go through all of this to get to us. It's kind of, if it was the situation, if it was these marauders or something, that they wouldn't go through all that issue. It would then be more of, let us know how to get to you, and we'll come get you and bring you to our safe place. That's what that would have been.
That's usually what happens in a lot of the post-apocalyptic movies that I've watched. That's how the bad guys operate.
Yeah.
We'll come to you. We'll help you. Tell us where you are. No. If they ask that question, no, do not tell them where you are.
Right. Yeah, so it's cool that they drop us right in the middle of some of the most intense stuff without the context of, we didn't know about Tom, that they had lost literally just minutes before this. Like, we don't have that context, so they throw us right into the beginning of the journey with just the three. And then they take us back in time and let us kind of catch up over time with a little back and forth, which is cool. But yeah, we go back, and Mallory's just kind of stays cooped up in her studio and doesn't really go out anywhere. Her sister is really the only person she talks to, which her sister Jessica. I love Sarah Paulson, so that was great to see her.
She's so lovely. So lovely.
Yeah, it comes over and is telling you, she's like, turn on the TV, and it's like, oh, the happening is happening, basically.
Yes.
Except this time, I don't think it's plants.
No, not plants.
But yeah, Mallory doesn't seem to be as worried as Jessica does. She's like, oh, that's over in Russia. And then literally she like mutes the TV as the TV is showing, like, and Russia to Alaska is right here. Yeah. And I couldn't tell like if they were like expecting that this could happen, or that it was saying, oh, it made the jump. Like, it probably, either way, it did not take long for it to spread to where they were.
It never does.
No.
Knowing that we're just kind of coming out of a pandemic, seeing it spread like it did in the movie, it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, no,
of course.
That tracks. There's
that
a lot of,
works. Yeah,
this came out,
how it goes.
This came out quite a bit before COVID.
It did.
It was kind of fun, because then you get the scene of the crazy person whose life goal it is to make her take off her blindfolds. Because I was like, well, haven't we seen that before? Except the piece of cloth that they're unnecessarily angry about is a little lower on the face.
If it's being worn correctly.
Right. But I've seen those kind of crazy people before.
I told you I was sassy tonight. It's coming out. It's going to happen. That's how it goes.
But yeah, so then we'd see that Mallory's pregnant. We find that out.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I guess, whatever her ex, it didn't go well. It didn't end well, where, even Jessica said, he was really just more of a roommate.
Yeah. It sounds like they hooked up, basically. Like, they just hooked up.
Mm-hmm. But they do seem to have a really good bond with each other, the sisters. They give each other a lot of shit, but they understand each other at a very, really good level. They both had a rough childhood, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And, it sounds like, basically when they're talking to Dr. Lapham, the, doctor who's there with this, checking on the baby, and it's kind of her birth doctor here. They kind of spill, while joking with each other, but they spill that information a little bit, that their mother was never really there for them, and their dad was just not around. He's up in a stud farm somewhere.
Which I have to say, Parminder Nagra, who played Dr. Lapham, I've seen her as a doctor in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So it was not like out of character. I feel like she, from being on ER for a bunch of years, I feel like she may have some of that terminology on stockpile in her head for just these occasions.
Right. But yeah, which, this Dr. Lapham kind of even, through this joking, sees Mallory for where she is, and does kind of remind her of the adoption option, and is like, says, if this is something you're not ready for, there are options for you. And she seems to really care, which I like that a lot. So it's great to see her come back. As like kind of far-fetched and crazy as that is, it's like, man, they have a lot to talk about now that she is like a dedicated mother. It's like, man, that conversation is going to be real interesting.
I know. I almost wish we could have listened in on it, because what a different Mallory we have between that appointment and the end of the movie. Which
it's wild, because when you see Mallory, I get John Malkovich in my head, because he's also in this movie, but then on the Netflix series Space Force, he plays Dr. Mallory. And
goodness.
It's this
So your wires are getting crossed.
It's crossed a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit. Like I can separate with this, but it's funny because then I'm like talking Mallory, and then I picture John Malkovich also in this movie a little bit. It's like, no, that's Dr. Mallory from Space Force. I love John Malkovich so much.
His delivery every time is incredible. I think my favorite film he ever did was Con Air. And I know he's done these wonderful movies that are like Oscar nominated, but there was something about playing Cyrus the Virus that gets me every single time, because he's just incredible.
Yeah.
But going back to and talking about connections, when Jessica gets to the apartment, Mallory is working on a painting that her sister looks at and says, well, these people don't look very happy. And then Mallory says, well, it's about people and their inability to connect with each other. And to me, it was kind of like she was thinking about herself, because she doesn't connect with people.
Yeah, which Jessica even reads into that, because she looks at her, and that's when we found out she's pregnant. It's like, no, that's not what's going to be. Because she does. She reads into that being like, you don't think you're going to have any connection to this child.
Yep. And her sister tries to tell her, you will, but Mallory's skeptical. And so Jessica skips out on a horse meeting she was supposed to go to, so that she can take Mallory to the doctor to see Dr. Lapham. So they get to have that special moment, which I was grateful for, because we didn't get to see Jessica for long after that. And
shit hits the fan pretty fast right after that. Yeah. Like, as they're leaving the hospital, whatever was going on in Europe has already made its way down. Like, that spread very fast, in a matter of hours at most. Well,
because we see that girl on the cell phone talking away with no problem when they're coming in.
Yep.
But when they're leaving, she's smashing her head against the wall. It's like, something is, the wiring's gone wrong.
It works pretty fast. These creatures, entities, whatever they are, kind of in and out very fast a lot of times. I mean, we get that with when they're driving away after things are going wrong. So like, we got to get out of here, get out of town, go somewhere. And it was as quick as Jessica's phone ringing and Mallory reaching into the back seat to answer it. And while she's turned around, Jessica sees something. And then when Mallory turns back, it's over with, but it's too late for Jessica. And she crashes the car. And then whenever they get out of the car, and she just walks in front of the bus, and it's a lot of just horrible things. And it's all happening so fast. And Mallory's just like in shock. And then that's when Lydia comes out and sees that she's pregnant and invites her into the house. But then again, as quickly as just like, while she's looking down to gather her things, Lydia sees something. And then that's that, like, you know, Mom, please don't go. So you can tell, like, when, you know, Charlie is talking about like, oh, all these, they sound like these crazy theories, but some of the stuff he said about like coming to you in the form of your deepest regrets or sadnesses or losses. And it was like, I think he was probably way more on to like spot on than people gave him credit for.
Agreed. I think he was. It sounded crazy at the time, but honestly, with everything else that was going on, I think he was spot on with it, to be honest.
And yeah, and it's just some of the visuals. It's terrifying. I mean, and I almost wanted to say Dr. Mallory. See, I've done this to myself now.
No.
So as Douglas is, you know, standing there at the window watching, as he's already told her, we just come inside. We don't help anybody else.
Yeah.
But then his wife, Lydia, goes out to help Mallory. And in that moment, I mean, he just has to stand there at the window and watch her just calmly walk and get into a burning car. And it's a lot.
Yeah. Douglas didn't want anyone to come in. And you have to, if you think about it, he was kind of right. People coming in, I mean, you don't know if people are who they say they are. In some cases, yes. In some cases, no.
Yeah, he's not the most personable individual.
No.
You know, Olympia, I would give her maybe as the, you know, exception. Nothing really bad happened from letting her in specifically.
No.
Other than she's the one that lets Carrie in later, but anybody could have done that.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I mean, he's not, he wants no part of it. And then you can tell even when Tom's like, no, we're letting her in. And he's upset. He's cursing, he's screaming. And it's like, dude, you need to chill, which is why Mallory holds him up with that shotgun gunpoint. Like, you're going to chill out right now is basically what she's telling him. She doesn't have to say a word. And I love just to see kind of her badassness that she has that strength and bravery, which Olympia makes sure to, like, that's why Olympia asks, if anything happens to me, I want you to take care of my baby because you are a stronger person than I ever could be. And she sees that at that kind of, you know, right there, even though Olympia's still outside the door at a lot of that. Well, I know Olympia was inside, I think, to see the like back part of that because she comes inside and then he makes that little quip of just like, okay, now put that gun away because you don't even know how it works. And she sits there and just unloads the shells real quick. Like, no, I've been around. I'm capable.
Yeah, I think I liked when Olympia arrived because you think at the start of when she meets Mallory that it is not going to be a friendship. And it ends up being a friendship.
Yeah, I think she does come on a little strong.
She does.
Maybe she's very lonely, but she's also very friendly. And it's this bonding that she desperately wants. She's like, I'm pregnant, you're pregnant, we're due at about the same time. Turns out to be pretty much exactly the same time.
Yep.
Just kind of, I guess pregnancies sync up too. I don't know how to.
I don't think so.
I don't know if that's how that works, but you know, we'll go.
I don't think so. But yeah, one had their water break and contractions started pretty quickly, and then within 10 minutes, Mallory was following suit.
Right, but but yeah, but she wants that bond. It's not only, you know, it's like you know, we're kind of together in this. But, you know, she's excited about it. She's just friendly. But then when she starts talking about, oh, what are you going to name your baby? And, you know, and my husband was this, and this. And, oh, I bet your parents are just so excited. Your family. And it's all these things that Mallory just doesn't have. And that it's a little much for her. And she needs to step away for a bit.
And she doesn't want to hear it. Like, she does not want to hear any of that because I don't think she had thought of names. I think she was just kind of going through it and we'll see what happens when she has the baby.
Yeah.
But over time, they really developed this connection. And I feel like it's a big part of the story is watching Mallory build some connections with the people that were in the house, in Douglas's house. Because she did build connections with a few people there.
Yeah. Let's see, just kind of jumping to random notes. Yeah, we see, you know, that she's kind of one to learn a lot of things that you know apply to everybody, but we watch this movie through the lens of Mallory a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Is realizing, the birds kind of react to something's by, which we first see that actually as kind of a flash forward back to the river.
Yes.
When they're on the river and she's trying to reach Rick on the talkie and can't, but then the birds in the box start freaking out, and that's why she said we have to be quiet because you can draw these creatures or whatever in. And then she hears the whispers through the blanket and has to turn everything up, and the birds are going bananas. And so that's...
So she knows they're out there. She knows they're around her. Mm-hmm. And all they have is this blanket.
Yeah, and she, even while she's inside the house, if she's like sitting on the couch too close to the window or while she's laying in the bed, she can hear when they're nearby, the whispering, and it's really unsettling. I like the way that they handle the creatures, the entities, whatever. I bounce back and forth on calling them either. I like the way they handle it because they put us, the viewer, kind of in the same headspace as the characters. I'm glad they chose not to reveal or show what these things look like. I have seen online some mock-ups of what they were supposed to look like if they did show them, and I'm glad they didn't go that way.
I think sometimes it's better when you don't know.
Yeah. They just wanted to put us in that same suspense and an unsureness, and unknowing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you're not supposed to see what they look like, so let's just stick it with that. Like, you hear things, we get like little like movements and shadows, and eventually it gets, the most we see of them, the leaves rising up, and there's kind of, and as they're being chased through the forest, we kind of see the tree, like the brush and the trees and stuff moving aside. It's like the smoke monster from Lost, kind of thing where you see what's going on, but you never see them. And I do like that they stuck with that.
Yeah, I like that too. There were things in it that reminded me of The Happening, but they did it in the right way.
Right.
If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like the wind going in the directions and culminating together. It's like, yeah, you did it the right way. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. I appreciate it so much. Yeah, I appreciate it so much more. Yeah, they had thought about revealing the creatures, and I, too, am really glad they didn't. Because, like I said, I feel like it's better not to see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, again, in Charlie's ramblings on about, because a lot of it was like, they would come to you like looking like this or this kind of, or a person or blah, blah. And there's one of the things that he said that is closest to the mock-ups. They were going with that direction. He says something about pregnant women seeing their unborn babies coming to them with like the likenesses of like spiders or lobsters. That's kind of what the mock-up was.
Oh, God.
You remember seeing Gary's drawings where it's kind of these like tentacly, sharp-legged creatures? Yeah. And then it had like the face of a baby is kind of what they were going with. And
oh my God. No.
Again, I'm glad they didn't do it because I just don't think they would have been able to pull it off correctly.
No. One thing that made me sad is I wish we'd gotten more of Charlie because I liked him.
I did too.
He was one of my favorites.
Lil is so great.
Oh my God. I forgot he was in this. And as soon as he came on and had his little, book that he was working on, I'm like, oh my God, it's Rod from Get Out. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because he was so good in Get Out.
Yes. Yeah.
He's just fantastic.
Lil Rel is great, like comedic relief, but he can also be a compelling character. And I think he's got that. Like I had, write some stuff on him. Like I love his dry, the way he'll deliver something. And it's so funny when he's so matter of fact. Like when they're getting together, they've decided we've got to make a run to the supermarket to get this stuff. Tom's come up with this plan, black out the windows, use the GPS, which, man, that is the best GPS I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
Man, they must have been going real slow. It's like, you got to watch for other things. It has like the, proximity sensors. It's like, they lucked out with that car.
Well, Douglas, of course, it was his house.
He's the lawyer. He's got,
Yeah.
He's a bankruptcy lawyer. He's got the money.
He's got the money.
But yeah, and then they're like, well, Charlie's coming with us too, because he goes to the supermarket and he goes, Charlie ain't going nowhere. I gave you the information. That's all you needed. You don't need to tell me, you don't need me to tell you where to go. It's a supermarket. They got signs in there. You've been shopping before. You want to get cereal? The sign will say cereals. If you can't read, I get it, but you can read.
But they were so funny when they got there. Okay? They get there with a GPS, and at the end, they've hit the curb. They're there, but they've not without hitting things.
Yeah.
And the GPS says, "You have arrived." And I burst out laughing.
I did too. I did. It's just a great little levity moment.
Yeah.
In just a world of terror.
When they go in the store, they're just asking Charlie, "Where's this? Where's this?" And he said, "Aisle 7, aisle 5. He's just riddling it off, and they're taking off and doing their things.
Yeah. As the guy that works there, it was helpful. He was like, "Yep, just go here." And then he's looking around at all the mess on the floor. He's like, "I ain't cleaning that shit up."
Yeah. I love that, too. I thought,
I am off the clock.
Yep.
Yeah, and then they encounter fish fingers at the market there in the loading dock. And that's where we learn a few more things here about, the world in this movie. R.I.P. Charlie was pretty rough, but that's where we first see, even though that's not where we first see in the movie, that is where our characters chronologically first see the birds and how they react.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why she decides to take the birds and keep them with them. And then they are seeing the fact that somebody with no blindfold on is mentally unstable and is not being killed by the entities, but is doing what they can to bring other people out to see them.
Yes.
So it's quite a revealing moment for them to see some of these things that they're having to deal with, or, at least in the birds, something that helps them.
Which Douglas did give us some moments of levity with him being in the alcohol section and saying this is truly the happiest place on earth. And then pulling them all together so he can make this toast. All of us are making the end of the world great again. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my gosh. And Douglas just wants to stay there. But at that point, this would mean leaving the folks who didn't come with them back at the house. And Mallory's like, here's an argument. We're not assholes. They're not going to do that. Because Douglas really wants them to stay there. He's like, we've got everything we need here.
Yeah, and which, I get it.
Yeah.
He's not wrong.
No. But yeah, it is an asshole move for sure. And Mallory's not down with that. She said, the other people that are in that house relied on us. We told them we were going for supplies and we were coming back. And, what does that make us if we don't? Yeah. Assholes.
Mm-hmm. And then I love, they don't show us them making it back with the GPS again. And, so I'm freaking out. But, when they do get back, I love that Mallory just gets onto Douglas's case. Because right then, they're asking, where's Charlie? And he goes, another novel I won't have to read. And he saved us, you fucking asshole.
Yeah.
She wasn't going to have it at that point, that this guy needs put in his place. He is. And they have a little moment together after that, which I won't say it's a bonding moment or a nice moment, but it's kind of a understanding. It's not even respect, because she never respects him. But he's clearly an asshole, but he knows it and he embraces it. He knows who he is, and he's just like, look, you don't have to like me. A lot of people don't, but I'm trying to survive, and you can take it or leave it. And I think he has a little bit of respect for her, but it's just that personality type, the, self-proclaimed intellectual who doesn't have to be nice to the people who are lower than them. And unfortunately, I have met my share of those people in life as well.
Yeah, they're not very pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
They're not pleasant at all. Yeah, they bonded a bit talking about her father a little bit. And she said, yes, he was fluent in asshole as well. It's a language. Mm-hmm. I never thought of it that way, but it is, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's because her dad had blamed a lot of things on conspiracy theories and this and that and everything else. But they did come to an understanding, I feel like.
Yeah.
She's not going to respect him, but they came to an understanding about the situation, at least at that time. I feel like we have to go back a little bit because we lost another character before they decided to go out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Greg, played by B.D. Wong, who's Dr. Wu to me. And
Yeah, Doctor. Yeah, this is. Yeah, I have that kind of note. I was like, and then they get into the house, which belongs to Dr. Henry Wu.
Was it his house or was it?
Yeah, it was. They were in. They were in the home of Greg and his husband.
Okay.
Because that's what. So that would have been Greg's car or his husband's car, which his husband was an architect.
Yeah.
Probably a very successful one. It sounded like.
Yeah.
So that's right. So it was Greg's house, but because he had his camera set up and his situation that he was looking at. Yeah, it was fun. Him and Douglas know each other quite well as neighbors, but then we find out, the whole thing is Douglas is suing Greg and his husband because they're building an extension onto their house that he thinks is an eyesore. Like that. Yeah, it's more of just that's the guy who he is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Greg decides that they should try to see if you can view outside through the digital version or a digital view. If you can look outside and if that will still impact you if you see them through the camera versus the naked eye, which unfortunately does not go well for him.
Yeah, that's R.I.P. Greg.
He's gone too soon.
Yeah, didn't take long. Which I guess is good news for them to know that, but yeah,
still sad.
It is.
Yeah, it wasn't long after Felix, who was a big pain in the ass. I found it interesting that he and Lucy kind of developed this relationship because in the beginning she was looking at him like, never gonna happen.
Right.
Want nothing to do with you. And then all of a sudden they're all close and huggy and touchy and it's like, Well,
a little more than that too.
Well, yeah. They were together and I'm just like, is this the end of the world and grab who's around?
Pretty much,
maybe?
I think.
Is that how it goes?
It didn't take them too long to hook up, even though, like I said, she doth protest a lot at first.
She did. It's not going to happen. Because he tried right from the beginning. And she's just like, no. But it did happen.
Yeah.
So that was their one and only trip to the grocery store because Lucy and Felix steal the car.
Yeah. We never really... we don't know what happened to them. I'm going to assume, knowing them the little bit we did in the movie, they probably didn't last too long.
No, I don't think so. She came in, she was a cadet at the police academy. So you're thinking she might be a really good person, maybe. No, she ran off with the drug dealer. The police officer and the drug dealer running off together. That's how that works. Opposites attract. That's how it goes. So they went off together and took the car, leaving them with nothing.
Right.
Granted, they had restocked everything, but still, that was their lifeline. And maybe Douglas was right, and they should have maybe gone back and gotten everyone else and brought them to the store. But again, I feel like a store is a magnet for marauders. Yeah, that's the first place they're going to go. How many movies have we seen where they want to take over a store? They want to control supply and demand.
Yeah, it's a great central place with a lot of supplies, and you're not going to be the only people that have that idea. Yeah. Let's flash back where the story is a little bit. I am going a little chronologically. I'm not trying to recap, but it is. I like the way that they, tell the story.
Yeah.
We're back on the river, seeing what's going on with Mallory and the kids, and that's where the boat hits a truck and flips over, and Boy falls into the water. Which luckily Mallory's able to save him and pull him back in, but then all of their food and blankets and things are lost. So then when she hears wind chimes, she makes the decision to pull over and try to, search whatever place this is to try to get some more supplies, more food, dry clothes. Cause I'm thinking as a caretaker, in charge, I was like, okay, his clothes are wet. And I'm like, you can't keep him in wet clothes because it's only gonna make it worse.
Yeah.
He's only going to get colder. I was like, but if you take his clothes off and throw him in even with that little jacket, I was like, eventually no clothes are also, he's going to be cold because it is cold out there.
Yeah.
And it's not sunny, so you can't air dry or sun dry the clothes. I'm like, no, she's right. You've got to stop and try to find dry clothes and supplies and stuff because it's not a good situation at all.
definitely not. That was the moment we see her with the fishing line. Like, she was using fishing line to kind of track where she was going so she could get back to the boat. And we got to see more when she was walking. I mean, we saw skeletons and bodies and things throughout this whole movie, but we're getting to see the things that she can't.
Yeah.
And that was something I really appreciated is, like you said earlier, they took us to their level, but in these instances, we got to see what she was tripping over because it was visible to us, but not to her. So we could see how hard it was for her to be navigating through all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And as she's in that building, it looked kind of like a hospital setup, but I don't think that's initially what it was. Like, I think it was kind of a thrown together, like medical area. Yeah. It still didn't last long, but she's able to find a couple, some dry clothes and food and things there. But then the creatures find her while she's there. You get that unsettling little moment of like the line being pulled on.
Yeah.
And dragging the little bed that she tied it to across the room. And yeah, then the leaves floating up and the whispers, things like that. But she knows, I mean, as long as she's blindfolded, I guess they have established, as long as you don't see them, like, they can't physically touch you or harm you. So it's all through what they can. It's mind games.
It's optical. They will,
they will whisper to you and talk to you in in voices that are familiar to you to try to get you to look at them.
Yes.
Which most people have learned at that point. I mean, that's not going to happen. But they do get pretty dastardly is the word I can use. They're kind of at the end as they're on their way to the sanctuary, trying to trick the kids by using Mallory's voice and telling them, "No, look at me. You can look at me. It's safe now." I was like, "Ooh, those bastards!"
Yeah,
you can't do that to the kids. That's not fair.
No, it's not fair. I mean, they're like, but you said it's not safe, and I don't know if she ever went through with them about the voices, like that could trick them.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, they had 5 years to train them on things, so hopefully she would have been like, if we're outside and I'm telling you to take it off, you don't listen to me.
No.
You never take it off outside, no matter what. So that probably is what kept them.
Especially if they're separated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then that last-ditch effort before they make it to the sanctuary, where the monsters are coming to her in the voice of Tom.
Yeah.
Where I feel like even on Mallory, it almost worked for a moment because she didn't see him die.
No.
So she's wondering, well, he knew where we were going. Maybe he followed. Maybe he found a way to get another boat and is following behind us. But it was the moment where in Tom's voice it says, "You just have to look at me." She knew. Nope. Mm-mm.
Yeah, no. No, Tom wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
We also get Girl disobeying Mallory.
Yeah.
She's got a rope around her and she goes to try to help Mallory, even though she's been told, no, don't do this. And there's a point where she's pulled backwards and the rope is pulling her to the boat. And I'm thinking, because I've forgotten. I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, I know how it ends, but what the heck is this?
Yeah.
And she goes flying and Mallory was really stern with her.
Yeah. I mean, Mallory got back to the boat and realized she wasn't there and kind of felt that the rope had been like, was taut and was wired. She's like, nope, yoink, just pull her right back.
Yeah. She pulls her back to the boat and she just, I told you not to leave this boat. I told you to stay in this boat. You have to listen to me. Again, I think that's why Girl was scared of her.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the instances where she was just especially fierce.
Mm-hmm. It's like very authoritarian, very strict, but it's not malicious. Everything that she is doing, I mean, she has got that little level of separation between her and the kids, but she does care about their survival and care about their safety, and everything that she does is to keep them alive.
It is. It's just, it's hard for kids to understand that, but it's all they've ever really known.
Right.
We see her earlier before this, training them outside with rocks. Like, when you click the rocks together and you hear it like this, it means you're in an open space. Like, you have to think that these kids grew up learning that the blindfolds were the only thing, to keep them safe outside.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we get more of Mallory making those connections before the kids were there. Again, I love her and Tom bonding, Tom telling her the story of, his time in
Iraq.
Was it Iraq? Yeah.
Yeah.
And, with the family connection there, and then him, the father that he would protect with his kids every day gave him that necklace, and just the conversation they have where you really learn that Tom is a person who is full of hope. He's got a big heart, and everything is about hope, that he feels like things can and will get better the more that you keep striving. And I think that does, rub off on her a little bit, and she does take a lot of those pieces from Tom. And then, of course, the other person who's super important to her. I mean, that's where she gets the kids' names eventually, is, we get there at the end to talk about that. I mean, when seeing Dr. Lapham again and asking what the kids' names, and they say girl and boy, and she's like, no, thinking back to her discussion with Tom, it's like, we can't do that anymore. That's not enough. And she names them Tom and Olympia, which, Olympia named after her own birth mother, which I don't know. Do they have that conversation ever in life? Who knows?
Yeah, I wonder about that.
But
if she ever tells her.
Yeah, but we see that moment between her and Olympia that I talked about where she says, because you are so strong and the person that you are, that if something happens to me, you will protect my child. And then Mallory gives her the present of the little Hello Kitty keychain, which is Girl's kitty that she has been holding on to in the boat and all this time. And, it's those beautiful moments that made a lot of this movie too.
Yeah. I loved seeing how she interacted with Olympia when she first came to the house. And then that moment with the Hello Kitty and just talking about, there was this closeness and this compassion between the two of them that we didn't see earlier on. And it's the calm before the storm.
Yeah. Yep. Because that's where we get, the birthing scenes, which even before that, we get the first look. Because it's interesting that they kind of bookended that really big scene with Mallory deciding what to do with the rapids. There's other stuff, that leads up to that, because we get that after, because it's not really distinctly or like directly bookended, because we get Tom's death and all of those things first too. But that they show us the rapids thing first, and then everything that leads to that decision again, where at first you kind of come to realize, okay, boy is hers, but girl is not biologically her child. That's Olympia's daughter. And so when you kind of realize and pick that up, and then she's having to make this decision of, when we get to the rapids, somebody has to look, and it can't be me, because if I die, then nobody makes it. So it has to be one of the kids. And then for Boy to be the first one to volunteer, and for her to, no, I'll pick. And you see that she's afraid of her own child, that biological connection. She does have that connection to her child that she didn't think she would.
Yes.
Where she jumps immediately to, no, I must protect him. But then it kind of becomes this thing where, like, but do I really put that responsibility on this little girl just because she's not my biological daughter? And then when she flashes back later on to Olympia and thinking about Olympia asking her, protect my child if something happens to me, that's where she gets that point where she said, I can't make either of them do it. I can't.
And girl does volunteer.
Yeah.
She says, I'll do it. And I don't think she really fully understands what it means. I'm not sure. Or maybe she does. But that is the point that Mallory just says, no, none of us are going to do it.
Yeah. Just going to hope for the best, which, I mean, I guess they did, because she managed to, avoid most of the rocks and stuff. It was really more just one of those big dips that flips the boat. And luckily she's able to reach out and find both of them.
Because one is yelling and the other one is using the bell she had picked up. She was innovative when she needed to be.
But yeah, that scene, that kind of sequence. Talk about Gary, who Olympia ends up letting in. He seemed a little off, but also, I mean, I'm still not exactly sure. I think it's explained a little bit better in the book how this worked out. It's been a long time since I've read it, so I don't remember exactly. But yeah, because with Gary, I mean, he shows up and he says he's running from these marauders who are trying to force people to look. But then you kind of find out that he is one of them, but he hasn't looked yet. And so it's just, again, how it lines up. I think the book did it a little bit better. I just don't remember how exactly. I'd have to go back. But yeah, when you really realize he may not be who he says he is, when he's got these sketchbooks full of drawings of the creatures and what they look like, or probably, at least what he thinks they look like based on maybe what some of his friends and the other marauders have told him they saw, but why he hasn't looked yet himself, I'm not sure. But he kind of gets almost like he was waiting, like it was a purposeful infiltration.
Yeah.
That he wanted to go in normal, not crazed. Well, for at least, what he was, to kind of gain their trust and then wait for this moment. And he kind of finally, when the babies are born, that's when he feels like this is the moment and just goes full on like insane. He takes the birds, puts them in the freezer so they can't warn anybody. And he starts tearing paper off the windows so he can he sees the things himself. And then that's what drives him to go upstairs and let the babies see and their mothers see and everybody else needs to see.
Douglas tried to warn them.
Yeah.
He did. He said we should not be letting him in. And Douglas gets knocked out by Cheryl and stuck in the garage. And he's yelling at Tom, who'd been knocked out, taking the birds out of the freezer.
Mm-hmm.
Because Douglas has said, hey, he's put the birds in the freezer. Something's going, do something, get the gun. And then Tom's knocked out. And then Gary hatches his master plan. And he kills a few people in the process. Yeah,
it was definitely the most messed up part of the movie. I mean, he looks at the babies and he's kind of got this like, oh, thank you. How beautiful. Thank you for letting me see them. And then he's like, but I want you all to see something beautiful now. And he just opens up the windows and tears a paper off, which immediately gets Olympia. We see she happens to be looking right there out the window. And it's just timed right that there's a creature out there waiting for them, that they've, timed this. And then he's telling her, no, you need to let your baby see. And Olympia was going for it. But luckily, because of that connection between Mallory and Olympia, that she's able to, whatever's left of that sanity that's inside of Olympia, she's like, let me see your baby for 1 minute. Let me just hold her. And that connection that they do have luckily lets her, allows her to hand the baby over.
Saves girl's life.
Yeah, to where the babies are saved, but then Olympia just dives out the window. And then Cheryl is not long after that. She, wants to kind of attack Gary, but she's got her eyes closed. She can't see, so Gary's able to just grab her and force her eyes open, and then she stabs herself in the neck.
Yeah.
And it's not great.
So sad. She had just delivered both of those babies.
Yeah.
And then, boom, this is what's transpiring. And then Gary wants the kids. Like, he is going to forcefully take them from Mallory.
Yeah.
Except Douglas, who miraculously kept his eyes closed.
Somehow got out of that garage.
Somehow got out of the garage. Shoots him.
Yeah, but he's kind of just blindly aiming around. He doesn't want to just start shooting wildly because there is a mother and two children in that room. So he's trying to pinpoint Gary's voice, which Gary knows, and he's going back and forth and really trying to stay, out of the line of fire. But he does clip him, but it's not enough to kill him. Gary tackles him through the banister down to the first floor. And it's that, Gary's just crazed at that point. I mean, he stabs Douglas to death and even is apologizing. I'm so sorry, you won't get to see.
Like he doesn't want to see.
No, I think he's fine.
I think this is better for him.
And then they frame it, they set it up to make it kind of like lead us into believing that Tom then gets killed too, as they're kind of fighting over that gun. But then, so you get the gunshot where after we see that it was last pointed at Tom. And then you get the view of somebody's coming upstairs and Mallory's freaking out, but then it's Tom. He did kill Gary and he's there. So that's good.
I wondered if Gary was maybe a patient because they were talking about the mental hospital.
Yeah, I think so. I think when he's saying
he was
this group of people escaped from Northwood and came down, I think he was talking about himself.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Yeah, that was rough. Was rough, especially Olympia, because I really liked her. I felt like she was an innocent person, like really innocent person, and was all alone, formed this bond with Mallory, and I just, I didn't want her to go out like that.
Yeah. I
really didn't. But it's a movie we don't get to predict or say what we want to happen all the time. You have to take it at face value.
Yeah. Now, of course, now that everybody else in the house is gone and is dead, that we didn't see that just Mallory, Tom, and the two kids managed to live 5 years mostly in peace.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the house, just the four of them, with the kids being trained up in survival and things like we were saying. And, they've just 5 years been going off, like making these little runs to different houses in the neighborhood. They've kind of got it pinpointed down on how to do it. Marauders are showing up a little bit more frequently, though. Yeah. So, they're getting, Tom's getting a little worried about that. And that's when they get the call from Rick. We talk about, Mallory doesn't trust it, but I think Tom being more hopeful, realizing we've pretty much run supplies out on every house on the, anywhere nearby that's worth the risk of going to. And there's more and more Marauders showing up. It's like, I think this sounds promising enough that we have to do it. He does lie about them not having the kids with them so he can get the instructions on how to get there. Because I wonder if, would Rick have said, oh yeah, we do have kids. Oh, then never mind, it's not worth it. Or would he have still given it to them anyway? Or maybe a different route that's...
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he would have...
Longer, but, I don't know.
I feel like he still would have invited them because when we meet him...
There are a lot of kids there, too.
Yeah. And he tells them, he gives them all the instructions and he said, listen for the birds, hear the birds. Because there are a heck of a lot of birds at that sanctuary.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's when we get Tom telling these, the story to the kids about the world before, which makes Mallory really upset because that's where we get that difference in opinion of those two, where she views that as giving them false hope for things that they can never have or never do, while Tom, on the other hand, is saying, no, they need hope and dreams and love, that they don't have any of that. And surviving isn't living.
For?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's it all for? And there is a difference between existing, surviving, and living a life.
Yeah.
And he's really trying to get her to see that. She gets upset, though, because she thinks every decision she's ever had has been for them. But he really pushes back at her and says, you didn't even give them names.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that conversation, like you said earlier, really sticks with her.
Yeah.
Because when they arrive at the sanctuary and they are talking to Dr. Lapham, that's when she says, no, your name is Olympia and your name is Tom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the kids are with them on this other little run into this house where the Marauders show up. Which I have that note, because this is what strawberry tastes like. And I was like, well, kind of.
Family bonding time over Pop-Tarts. Yes. That was my note on that. I loved it because I thought it was really sweet. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. And I did laugh when they said this is strawberry, because I'm thinking, no.
Yeah, kind of.
Strawberry and sugar and sweet. Yeah. Not quite the same thing.
Strawberry flavored filling. Yeah. Kinda, yeah.
It's strawberry-ish.
Yeah. But, and things go south pretty fast there again with Tom. Tom ever the quick thinker, though?
He is. He's
he's the reason really that Mallory got into the house in the first place. Him and Lucy getting in there. The supermarket run was his idea. I think it was him that first decided we need to close all the windows in the house. Like, he's always...
He was on it. He was the one taking care of the little things.
Yeah, just very much... Just thinking again, just random note, throw back to that car drive to the supermarket where he goes, it's just a speed bump. I was like, yep, just a speed bump. A speed bump that went out looking for its kids a couple days ago, but speed bump, because that was that same person who that were in the house that first day when they got there, and then they got a call from their kids, what's that outside, which so disturbing. And so they were like, you can't leave. It's like, no, we're going after our kids. And we see they didn't make it very far down the street at all.
No,
but yeah, even when they're all enveloping the car and he kind of just guns it and gets away from the creatures. So yeah, he's the one that comes up with his ideas. And so at that moment, he knows what he has to do. And he sends Mallory and the kids to go to the boat. He's like, this is the time. Like, whatever Rick was saying, that plan, we know it, do it. And I'm going to hold them off. And he does. He tries to distract them, talking to them while Mallory and the kids are heading off, but they are spotted. And so he knows, I've just got to start blasting. And, a gunfight ensues to protect those he loves. And he manages to take 2 of them out with that shotgun while still blindfolded. But then he gets hit. He shoots back and he wounds David Desmalkian.
Yes.
And he gets to that point and he's like, in order to protect those that he loves, he took his blindfold off so he could take out all of the marauders and make sure all of them were killed. But he did see a creature in that moment and kills himself afterwards. It was not great.
No. And she'd had like 5 years of a relationship, because we haven't really touched on, they're a family. Tom and Mallory, they have a relationship. Like, it's a romantic relationship at that point.
Oh, yeah. I think it started after that conversation I mentioned about he was talking about his time in the military.
Yeah. She let him feel her tummy.
Yeah, which goes back to that supermarket where when they were talking about, the pregnancy and stuff, and he said, his sister was having her 4th. And then he always would feel his sister's belly because it gave him this kind of sense of hope and comfort. And he always... And so for her to do that for him was a big deal.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, but so after his sacrifice, we were down to the 3 and they hit the river and we're back to where they started us in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of can skip a lot of that other stuff. We saw it. So they kind of got back to, that's when they cut back to the rapids. And we talked about that a little bit, her making that decision, which does crash the boat, but she's still able to get both of them. She's not going to risk sacrificing either child in that way.
No. And that shows, honestly, to me, how far she has grown in this 5-year period. Because she wasn't the person we met at the beginning when she was making the painting about people who can't connect to each other.
Yeah.
She's really grown a lot. She's had a lot of heartbreak.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that she and Tom at least got to have some time with the kids as a family so that she could have some happiness. Because I just feel like in her life, she didn't have that before.
Yeah.
Because she even gets the nightie when she goes to one of the houses. She gets this silk night dress.
Mm-hmm.
And he's starting to go through the bag to see what she got when she went out. And he's like, oh, and this is for, survival.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I liked their chemistry together.
Definitely. So yeah, it's now this, inability to connect is not the case anymore. That now she has realized that connection is important. They're supposed to follow the sounds of the birds, but they get separated and the creatures are trying to get to her because they're speaking in the voices of Jessica and Douglas. And, ends up she trips on a root and falls down this embankment. And when she does come to, the kids are gone. they've kept on moving without her, and then they're being lured away by her voice being used by the creatures to lure them in a different direction. And again, the little bell, because the boy still has his bell, but girl dropped hers. So she was able to find boy, but then that's where, we talked about that, she's scared of you. So she's yelling out to girl. So she's kind of has to change tactic, like I said, and she's apologizing for the harshness that she's had. And she's telling the kids, what she really does want for them and wants to show them. And, it does work. Girl comes back, but I love she decides to take Tom's idea of giving them hope. Because it's this story that she didn't let him finish. What was at the top of the tree? And his answer is something simple. Oh, it was a nest with 5 birds and they flew away. The end.
Yeah.
And then she took that. She runs with that. She's like, he saw hundreds of kids and they were all playing and there was a bunch of birds. And then he saw us, we were together. And that might be one of the most emotional parts of the movie to me.
Yes.
It's not when girl comes to her, but then when they find the sanctuary that Rick has, it's this school for the blind. And they come in, and whenever he tells them to take off the blindfolds, he leads them to this outdoor courtyard. What is there? There's kids running around playing. There's birds flying around everywhere, and the 3 of them are together. And it just hit me. I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what she said to them.
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of that was an emotional moment, I think. When you watch this movie, it's hard not to connect to Mallory. Even though she doesn't connect to people, through the process of everything she goes through, you connect to her. Yeah. And when you see the joy, when she's telling the kids that, no, these are your names, and she sees Dr. Lapham, a familiar face. I mean, it's hard not to get caught up in the joy that she has. And
I like the setup of this place, the sanctuary. As the birds, Rick tells them, are there for, because it is a place for the blind. And so it was started as a sanctuary just where blind people are, because the nature of these creatures, blind people are not affected by them. They're not impacted by them at all. So they are survivors. But he's opened this place up for sighted people, as he said, to come in. So all the birds are as warning in case those creatures get close by. But honestly, I think that's really not even, it's just kind of a precaution, because when they're outside in this courtyard area, she's looking up and it's covered with this lattice that's, pretty thick enough to where you really can't see outside through it. But it still is enough to where lots of fresh air and sunlight can come out. And so that's another, the kids are finally, for the first time in their 5-year life, are experiencing outdoors and nature to where they can see it.
Yeah. And they wanted to go play. They wanted to play. They've never been able to play outside. It's such a new concept for them. And I remember the first time I watched this movie and the reveal that Rick, played by the amazing Pruitt Taylor Vince.
Otis.
When they reveal that he's blind.
Yeah.
And then it all comes together at the end. And if I remember correctly, there was some disgruntled people about the ending of the movie. But I thought the ending actually was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great ending.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought they nailed the entire thing. I really don't have any complaints, really, about this movie.
So I do remember enjoying it the first time I saw it. Of course, there were going to be the gripes that I was like, well, they changed this character and they didn't have this character in at all.
Yes.
And this scene wasn't there and they added this part that wasn't there. That was all in my head because, like I said, I literally finished the book, closed it, set the book down, turned on Netflix and started the movie.
Because it
was immediate. And so then watching it the first time, the book could not have been fresher in my mind. So it was, I'm going to be noticing all of those things for sure. So.
Yeah. You don't wait for anything. No. As soon as it's possible, you will watch it. I know when you cover shows on Strange Indeed, as soon as you podcast on it, right after podcasting, you'll watch the next episode if it's available.
Every time. So that's how my first, foray into this movie. That's how that was like book done, watching the movie. And like I said, maybe not the best idea because then I'm just thinking of all the book and its differences. So it was, like I said this at the beginning, but yeah, it was nice to go back and rewatch this movie just kind of on its own and really remember, I really enjoyed this adaptation of this story a lot. Yeah.
I liked the symbolism of her releasing the birds at the end. Like, the 3 birds made it the whole way through on this journey. And when they get in the sanctuary, she opens the box and she releases the 3 birds, so they're actually in the sanctuary now. And I feel like birds in this movie represent hope, I think, in some way. And I also think releasing them meant like she was releasing a piece of herself that had been more reserved, or like constraints around her heart, not allowing her to connect with people. I feel like that was like the release of all of that when she let the birds out.
Yeah. Releasing needing something as a warning, needing guarding.
Yes.
And being able to just let that go and trust in her own safety in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And live, which is what Tom wanted.
Yeah.
To have a life, not just survive.
And unfortunately, he was not able to get there himself. But he kind of does in a small piece because his name is passed on to Boy. And...
It is. I remember being excited when she named them after Olympia and Tom, just because we know those were 2 people who had a huge impact on her life in like the last 5 years. So that was a big deal.
Yeah. And with that kind of wraps up the whole movie, the story, and all of those Mallory notes with it. I do have a couple of extra random character notes. I don't know if you do, but...
I am looking through. I've said a bunch of them as we've gone.
Yeah, I did too.
So I feel like I may have gotten most of them out.
Yeah, so I'll see what I have. Talk about Girl and Boy a little bit. Of course, Girl.
Oh my.
Honestly, one of the main reasons I wanted to cover this movie.
I knew it.
Yeah, I just wanted to give myself a reason to dote on Vivian Lyra Blair a little bit and the incredible job that she did as young Leia Organa in Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, she pretty much stole that show on her own with the sass and sharpness.
Absolutely.
And I didn't recognize her at first. I was just like, who is this girl that is playing Leia? Because she is a Spitfire and she's incredible. And then while looking at it, it's like, oh my God, it's the little girl from Birdbox. And so we didn't have a movie for this week. We were trying to decide. I was like, let's do Birdbox so I could talk about her a little bit more.
Yeah, I didn't get it until I was putting the doc together and I looked at the cast list.
No, that's exactly the reason I picked this movie.
Yes, this is why. I know exactly why. Because I left it up to you. I said, Pake, you pick the movie for this week.
Yep.
And you said, Birdbox. I'm like, I didn't think about doing Birdbox. I mean, it's on the list somewhere. Yeah. And then I looked at the cast list and said, I know why we're doing Birdbox.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Not a surprise.
That's exactly why I picked it. And then, of course, Boy, Julian Edwards. I wanted to, while I'm in that moment, I'm like, I wanted to see if I had seen him, or, if he had really gone on to do other stuff. Not quite the level of Leia Organa. But he's a working actor still. He's 10 years old now. Still doing things. Nothing I'm very much familiar with. I did look through his IMDb. He's had some small bit parts on a couple of shows. A recurring role on the new version of the L Word. And he has done a lot of children's animation voice work, is really where he's cutting his teeth right now, doing a lot of kids animation. Mm-hmm. So... Again, nothing I'm watching, nothing I see him in, but good for him. He seems to still be quite an active, working young actor. So
yeah, maybe
we'll see more of him in the future. Maybe he'll roll land a Marvel or Star Wars or something thing as well.
I know. I feel like a lot of the movies that we've covered that have extraordinary child actors in them some of them have gone on to do some pretty big things, so it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. And then I just
pop up.
have a little note about both of them is their voices. I said, both kids have that very cute little underdeveloped speech thing where all the R's are like W's. They don't pronounce the R's roundly, so it's all, Mallory, get to the boat. I'm sorry. It's that little.
Know, it's so
and
cute.
I'm just like, it's so adorable, and I can't stand it.
I know. It was adorable.
It makes me think of Zach Galifianakis and his toddler with a beard routine that he does. It's one of my favorite things ever. Goodness. He goes, he goes, it hurts. It hurts and it's itchy and I don't want it anymore. I don't want to build. Get rid of my build. It hurts. I don't want to build.
Oh, if you guys could see Pake doing this impression on the video. I may have to make that available sometime. It's a riot.
Yeah, I remember that was years and years ago. That was like an old Zach Galifianakis like stand-up special way before he ever did the Hangover, before anybody really knew who he was. And that bit from that special stays in my head forever, lives rent-free for eternity. And so I hear their voices, I'm like, oh, that's so cute. And then I'm like, it's Zach Galifianakis.
Yep. Yes.
But let's see. Any other things? I think I talked about most all other characters. Pretty sure, because I tried to go back and throw in a lot of those notes. Again, I talked about Douglas suing Greg and his husband for adding on to their house because he's a dick. That's really, because he even makes that point. He's like, you and your husband are great. Like, that's when we find out that Greg is gay. Is because I think, Douglas is set up as this kind of very hoity-toity, conservative, tied up kind of person. So he's like, that's not the reason I'm suing you. It has nothing to do with you being gay. It's just, I'm just a douche.
He owns it at least.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
I only had one other note, and it's about the guy that Happy Anderson played, the Riverman, the one that jumps up onto the boat. His voice always sounds familiar, and it should, because we have a friend who's playing Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of the townspeople voices.
Yes.
In Red Dead 2.
Mm-hmm. I've seen him do a lot of voice acting and even regular acting in a lot of things. He's one of those kind of character actors that you see in. You have seen him in a million different things you've watched and just don't recognize it. Yeah.
Yep. You're like, oh, that's that guy from that movie. Oh, what's his name? Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of those for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that is everything I've got. Yeah, I covered everything.
Are you sure?
I did. So we are done, other than you have some behind the scenes. Now that I've given you...
No, you're giving me a hard time, and I'm not going to let you have that. Because I've actually decided... Here you go.
Trivia.
Here are some little factoids and trivia that I found. Of course, I'm not going to let you have the satisfaction. You know me well enough to know that I'm not. Are you kidding? Man. So without further ado, here is what I dug up on Birdbox. So, Josh Malerman wrote a rough draft of the source novel prior to the release of the movies The Happening and The Road, so he came up with it first. Some assumed Birdbox was created to cash in on the success of A Quiet Place, but the film rights were purchased in 2013, prior to the book's release, which was way before A Quiet Place was produced.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, Sandra Bullock and director Susanne Bier passed on this movie. They were not going to do it. Visual effects were by our good friends at Industrial Light and Magic. Live birds were used as much as possible, but were replaced digitally to depict the scenes where the birds were agitated and flying around and scary, crazy. So the film originally used footage of the 2013 Lac Megantic freight train disaster tragedy that caused the death of 47 people in the Quebec town. The stock footage was purchased from a vendor, and although Netflix originally apologized, they said they were going to keep it in the movie, despite survivors of the tragedy requesting that it be removed. However, in 2019, they announced it would be removed, and it was replaced by footage from a canceled TV series called Travelers. I was thinking, what, was Travelers like a 1 season, one and done? No, that was a 3-season show. So they pulled it from there.
Huh.
Cast members said John Malkovich had a bizarre connection with the birds on the set. If he told the birds to move their feet, they would. Is he a bird whisperer? Is that what that is?
I wouldn't put it past. John Malkovich is probably anything he ever wants to be.
Yes.
Like, he's just that kind of magical person that, like,
yes.
I feel like he's capable of anything. And if he does anything, you don't question it. You're like, yep. That's what
Agreed.
he does. Yeah.
Agreed. So Sandra Bullock personally asked Sarah Paulson to play her sister. They had starred in the movie Ocean's 8, like, a few months or up to a year before. So they had connected there. She really wanted to work with Sarah.
I really liked Ocean's 8. I did.
I have not seen it. It's not on my list of movies to watch. Maybe if I'm on the bus sometime. So Sandra Bullock said she was blindfolded for about 50% of the shooting schedule. She ran into a camera a couple of times when she was blindfolded.
At least they went method on it and really blindfolded them.
Yeah. So in July 2020, Netflix revealed that Birdbox had been watched by 89 million households over its first 4 weeks of release, which was at the time the second most ever for one of their original films. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross of Nine Inch Nails scored the movie, later told Variety that scoring the movie was a waste of time because they mixed the music so low you couldn't hear it anyway. Sounds like Trent Reznor. Reznor released the soundtrack for sale on the Nine Inch Nails website, a total of 10 tracks totaling an hour and 6 minutes. Later, a more robust version featuring 13 additional tracks was released, and that one was 2 hours and 6 minutes. Netflix canceled AFI Fest red carpet coverage that was scheduled for the premiere out of respect for the victims of the Thousand Oaks shooting and the Woolsey fire that was happening in California. Netflix partnered with Australian Twitch streamers to create a Birdbox challenge where streamers would play popular video games while blindfolded. Don't ask me to play Dead by Daylight while wearing a blindfold.
It's not going to go well.
Not going to go well. I have enough trouble when I'm not wearing a blindfold. The challenge was copied by others who wore blindfolds to do ordinary activities, which did cause harm to some. Common sense, people.
Right.
In January 2019, a 17-year-old girl in a blindfold taking part in the Birdbox challenge drove into oncoming traffic in Utah and crashed her car, prompting state police to issue a warning similar to Netflix.
Don't be an idiot. Come on,
Very
people.
simple. Very simple. A sequel was announced in July of 2020. In March 2021, a Spanish-language spin-off film was announced, the first of multiple local language Birdbox spin-offs that were set in the same universe. There's no other additional information at this time.
Interesting. I had never even heard that. But
yeah.
You know my views on those kind of things where I'm like,
yeah,
sequels aren't necessary.
Yeah.
If they make them, I'll watch them. Probably, most likely, I will. And I hope that you actually have a compelling and reasonable story for doing it. Don't just do it just to make a sequel because that's
yeah.
Unless you have the story and it is worth telling and you think that it is a viable, like, no, there is more story we need to tell, then go for it. But if not, just leave things alone.
Yes. I think a Spanish language spin-off film would not be a remake. Mm-hmm. If they have a good story and a good idea to go with, a spin-off film I could deal with. I don't want someone to try to remake it or have a sequel where life at the blind school, no. I prefer to leave Mallory, Olympia, and Tom where they are.
Right. If the movie's, if it's a direct sequel and they're like, and the creatures have found a way to get into I'm turning it off.
No.
Like, no.
Yeah.
I want them to be happy. We don't need that. But goodbye. You don't exist to me.
One final thing that I found is that Andy Muschietti, who of course directed Mama, It and It Chapter 2, and is working on The Flash, he was the original director that was assigned to the movie. And then things kind of flipped around and Netflix acquired the rights to the book and it all changed hands. So it ended up being Susanne Bier who directed the movie. And she's from Denmark.
Nice.
So she's done, some TV and just some different things. So I'd like to check out more of her stuff because I like her vision. Yeah.
I am trying to imagine what an Andy Muschietti version of this movie would have been. It definitely would have been much creepier. I mean, there was definitely there's definitely creepy things in this movie, but he would have cranked that up like double. I know, I know how he is.
Yeah. It could be interesting. Maybe they'll let him do the Spanish version. Spanish spin-off. I'd be down for that because you know what? It'd be creepy, and I don't mind subtitles.
Yeah, not a problem with me. Yeah. So, an Andy Muschietti version of this, or like within this universe, that is intriguing.
Isn't it?
I do wonder what he would have done. Yeah. I do really love me some Andy Muschietti, so yeah.
I'm super curious.
Yeah.
We may have to cover another of his films this year.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
I think we've hinted at it a few times.
Yeah, we have. Maybe. Yeah. I think we've done it, Pake. Oh my goodness. Just in time for the feedback phone.
It started ringing. Let me get that and see what people have to say about Birdbox.
Yeah.
Whoa. I answered the phone and it turned into a teleportation device, and now we're in the same place.
Oh my God.
For the first time.
You're right.
We're doing feedback from the exact same room. High five to prove it.
Yes, we're here together.
Recording feedback in the same room, in person together. I don't know how I'm going to get back home. I'm a little scared about that, but you know what? We'll figure that out.
Yes,
when we get to it. Because right now, we've got feedback to do.
We do.
So.
We definitely do.
Yeah, and it looks like we do have a little bit this week, so that's good. I'm looking at, we still got a couple of messages, some voicemails that were left on the feedback phone, so I can play those.
Yes.
Wow. Teleportation.
I know. It's so cool to have us be in the same place.
All right.
A little blown away that that's what happened, but it's cool.
Hey, it may never happen again. You never know what the feedback phone is going to do. Maybe
it'll do
something. Hopefully it doesn't teleport us back in time for our feedback section. That could be scary. But anyway, what do we have here? A little bit of feedback on Twitter. Our friend Mo Favo had a little thought. You're going to tag some different people asking, if Black Phone, the movie The Black Phone from Joe Hill, based off of the short story of the same name by him, was on people's radar. Because she read the story. She said, I read the story when Joe Hill published his short stories, getting good reviews. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and just talk about that a little bit. I did respond to her on Twitter. But me and Daphne, definitely are planning. I think we're going to have a guest to come on and cover that movie with us once it's available, for more streaming or at-home viewing. But we have both seen it. We're not talking about it because we're going to wait for the podcast.
That's right. It's so hard because now that you're here, I really want to talk about it with
you. But yeah, that one will be on the horizon eventually. Once that one's more widely available for viewing, be looking forward to that coverage there. But like I said, we do have a couple of voicemails that are on the feedback phone, and it is a double dose of live Steving this week.
It is. Ooh. He sent us one. The first one is about It Follows. Let's hear what he had to say.
All right, Pake and Daphne, this is Steve, and this is for It Follows. So, is this the walk of shame, or did something happen to her? How does that happen to your leg? All the pervy kids watching her in the pool? Ew. Oh, old school TV. They just suddenly transition from outside to inside in like a second. Yeah, I'm sure this movie is just trying to like build tension, but it's really slow. Okay, now we got some action happening in the car. What the heck, dude? You just knocked her out and tied her to a chair, but you're not going to hurt her. How's she supposed to... how's she supposed to sleep with somebody else? You got her tied to a chair. What a jerk. Oh, and the pervy kid is back. No, they do not want you to protect them. Apparently everybody's favorite punching bag. Classic. Little TV sitting on top of a big TV. Ooh, is she going to try to pass it on to him? Ew, is she peeing? And how did she get into the house? I guess through the broken window. Yes, any hideout is as good as another, but how are they going to, I don't know, how are they going to defend this place? I don't know. Got the bottles and those cans and things, so they'll hear it if somebody tries to break in. Okay, this was the house that the guy rented under an assumed name. Thought something the police had searched the house and not found any clues, so they found clues the police didn't. Good for them. Oh, that's messed up. It's got her and they can't see it. Oh, but he was able to hit it with the chair. Okay, headshots don't work. They move slow, but it changes form quickly. Movie goes from slow drag to flurry of activity and then slow drag. Oh, I'm assuming this is consensual, but this is just going to put it on Greg, right? Him having sex with Jay, if you didn't know which scene I was talking about. Well, I'm guessing his plan is just to pass it on to somebody else. There's like a half hour left of this movie, and I don't know what's going to happen now, but it's weird. So it's been a few days, and neither one of them have seen the thing since. Weird. Well, so much for Greg, and that's gross. And now it's going to be after Jay. So what did she do with those guys on the boat? Anything? Couldn't they have parked closer? It seemed like they really walked a long way to get to this fence. Where are they that has what looks like a fully Olympic-sized pool that's maintained perfectly? I mean, she's getting her cast wet. Oh, it figured out the plan. It's throwing the... Oh. Okay, so now she's having sex with Paul to see if they actually killed it or not. Hey, well, that was a movie. It was all right. Sorry I went long.
Not a problem, Steve. We got a great live Steving, solid all the way through the movie. Love it.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Breaking it down for us. I think Jason on Deadcast has said, sometimes like, why do we even worry about podcasting about this movie? Steve's going to cover the whole thing in 2 minutes.
I think Steve has something there with his 2-minute podcast.
Right. Just live Steving with Steve. It's a podcast of its own.
It really is.
But we love hearing it. And since we love hearing it, let's hear another one about this week's movie, Birdbox.
Here it comes.
Hello, Pake and Daphne. This is Steve, and this is going to be for Birdbox. And I should mention, I have not watched this since I watched it for the first time like 4 years ago. This movie just takes off, right? If you have no clue what this movie's about, you are completely in the dark here with this woman, with Sandra Bullock talking so harshly to boy and girl. Are they her kids? I don't remember. Okay, 5 years ago. So now we're going to get the backstory. This is a complicated relationship between Sandra Bullock and sister, friend. I don't remember. Hey, sisters. Oh, she's like bashing her head again. Oh. I find it comforting to focus on the wrong things. Oh, and she just stepped right in front of that garbage truck and splat. And this movie went downhill quick. You get all your information from the internet. This guy's got a lot of information from the internet. Okay, they're sleeping with their blindfolds off. What happens when they wake up? Oh, I'm on this scene 6 hours on the river. They're in some kind of tent. And oh, there's the bird box. The box that has birds in it. Oh, these things talk to you also? And they show you visions of people that have died? I think she knows how a shotgun works. By the way, you have to push a button in between every time you rock the slide in order to get a shell to eject. So if I understand this correctly, BD Wong is going to look at the security cameras to see if he sees one of these things and it makes him go crazy. Yeah, Mallory's not into the pregnant women bonding time. Oh, so this dude who's attacking them on the boat is just one of the crazy ones, didn't kill himself. Yeah, a dead body is just a speed bump. Now you're clear as long as one of those things is not in the supermarket. Dude, are you flirting with the pregnant woman who's older than you? I mean, Sandra Bullock could have been my hot babysitter, maybe. Oh, has she had these birds for the whole 5 years? And Charlie just sacrificed himself for the group. Oh, wow. That's pretty impressive. He got back into the garage successfully. I love John Malkovich. This is great, this scene between him and Sandra Bullock. He had some hair. He had some. No, kids, don't get up. She's not back yet. I forgot how good this movie is. I'm sorry that I'm going to go long, but man, the tension right here with Sandra Bullock's trying to get back, Mallory's trying to get back to the kids. The birds are chirping. This guy is not right. Oh, so the girl is Olympia's daughter. Oh, are they both going to give birth at the same time? Oh, so new guy was playing the long game crazy. Dang, Malkovich to save the day with the shotgun. Come on in, Malkovich. Even though we know that she and the baby survived, there's still a lot of tension in this scene. Are we supposed to assume that this, after 5 years, this is the first time they got busy together? Come on. Hey, the guy's name is Rick. The worst part of these scenes with all four of them together is that we know we're going to lose Tom at some point. And this is where we lose Tom. At least took the bag out as well, so. Don't fully remember the end of this movie, so this is tense with these kids hearing the wrong voices. Gosh, I'm so choked up right now with them getting back together. Oh my God, I don't know why. This has got me so emotional, and I'm so long, and I'm so sorry. The guy playing Rick is somebody, and I'm totally escaping. You'll probably know. I'm so glad you all are able to do this feedback in real life. I'm so choked up in this movie. I don't know why. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Wow, awesome.
Wow, Steve.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
He said he's going a little long. That is okay, because we are on an emotional journey with Steve Brown. And that is, so I love it. And I'm glad that we picked a movie that seems to really, sit with you. That's awesome. And yes,
you mentioned that Rick is played by somebody. That's Pruitt Taylor Vince.
Yes. And we did talk about it a little bit earlier in the episode, so you've heard it already. We've heard this. Yeah, he was Otis on The Walking Dead. So that's where you recognize him from. But yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Steve, for sending in your thoughts, your live Steving, and going through that, and even the emotional parts, because that's really cool. That's why I love covering some of these movies, is because
me too.
You've heard me cry on this podcast too. I'm open about it. So we love when we get some really good movies that hit you in your heart in the right places. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. And if you'd like to submit feedback like Steve or Mo, you can do so by going to our Facebook page at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. Send us a tweet on Twitter at RFYL Podcast. DM us on Instagram at runforyourlivespodcast. If you are enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much all other podcast players, including YouTube. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that is the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we do. Every time. And of course, talk about sharing the love. I'd like to give a couple shout outs to things going on in the podcast universe around us. My other podcast, Strange Indeed. Of course, we are still, me and Rima, rocking hard on that Stranger Things 4. Man, we're getting close to the end. We just recorded episode 7, and it should be out by the time you're hearing this. So so volume 1, we are through and done, and we're about to be jumping into those last 2 episodes, and I don't know if I'm ready. But it's been quite the ride, so that's fun. Thanks everybody who has been listening and following along with us. And if you haven't been, well, then there's still time. Come check out what me and Rima have been doing. I think we've been having a blast over there talking about Stranger Things. Just, man, one of the greatest shows of all time. That show has cemented its place in TV history, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it definitely has.
And then let's see. I'll go ahead and give a little shout out to House Podcastica and the Better Call Saul cast. They will be back soon because part 2 of the final season of Better Call Saul is going to be dropping or starting. The first episode of that part 2 will be this next week. So be on the lookout maybe a couple days after that, and they should have an episode up for that one. Man, Better Call Saul. I'm ready for that to come back. That's going to be good too.
Me too. It ended in such a way that now I just want to see where we go from here.
Yeah. Oof, man, no spoilers for anybody, but Man, yeah, that part one kind of cliffhanger. Dang.
Yeah.
Of course, if you are a fan of The Boys on Amazon Prime or Disney Plus's Miss Marvel, then you can definitely check out Panels to Pixels with Mark and Steve, or TV Podcast Industries with Derek and John and other co-hosts that he has kind of in there sometimes. Definitely check out those. They're covering both of those shows on both of those podcasts. Again, Panels to Pixels or TV Podcast Industries covering The Boys and Miss Marvel. Check those out as well. And then Adrenaline Cinema and Watched It in the 80s podcast both did a little crossover, so the new episode is in both of their feeds. They worked together, so Mark and Damien and my other co-host Rima, as a special guest, went in and covered the new Top Gun Maverick, and then those are on both feeds of those. And that's about it, other than I'll give a little quick shout out again to Wilhelm, just because if there are new listeners that are here from Wilhelm, if you're a Wilhelm listener, and you're over here checking us out after the awesome, little crossover episode that Ben dropped. He dropped our Independence Day from 4th of July last year on his feed. And we thank you for the very, very kind words, Ben, you said at the top. That was very nice. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Ben's
been a guest on our podcast.
We've had him 3 times now.
So far.
In that episode, we were talking about how it was only the second, and we did have him back for Armageddon since then. So, yeah.
And there are more planned for the future.
Yeah.
He will be joining us again.
Yeah. So, again, just a little quick shout out. Go check out Wilhelm. We want to share the love to Ben because he shared the love to us.
Yes.
And yeah, great. So, again, if you're a Wilhelm listener, welcome. Thanks for coming and checking us out.
Yeah. I think we're lucky to be part of a podcasting community that's so supportive of each other in that way. It's great. It's made it easier to kind of get into the groove.
All right. So, last thing to kind of shout out or promote, of course, is Daphne, what is going on next week right here on Run for Your Lives?
Well, when a special girl named Melanie realizes things are not as they seem at her post-apocalyptic school, she takes matters into her own hands to ensure the future of all the special children. Next week, we'll be breaking down the 2017 film, The Girl with All the Gifts. Now, this is based on the 2013 novel of the same name by M.R. Carey. We're looking forward to being able to talk about the movie, but also the book in some ways, because Pake and I have both read it.
Yes. One of my favorite books of all time. So
yes.
It was fun to break down and talk about the movie and then a little bit of, compare and contrast. Especially you just reading the book. So that was kind of fun to... Yeah. That was very fresh in your mind.
It was so much fun to be able to talk about it. So I'm looking forward to getting this episode released. It was a lot of fun to cover, having just read the book so recently. Everything was still fresh. With that, we've reached the end of another fun episode. Peg, I don't know how you're going to get home.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. but for now, yeah.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Peg.
And if you have to run or teleport, you'd better run for your lives.
Bye-bye. Now, how am I supposed to get out of here?